Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Viking Central podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, the thumbs up button, and turn on that bell for notifications. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't hesitate to leave a review on that as well. Of course, I got the two guys here, Thomas Gorski and Dustin. Again, you can follow Thomas at Thomas Gorski 33 on Twitter and Dustin at that Vikings fan 8 on Twitter. All right, Scouting combine starts later this week. I'm looking forward to watching this and kind of seeing how all these guys perform. Obviously, a lot of different drills they do, and it kind of gives you an idea of how these guys are going to translate. And sometimes it doesn't show anything because Tom Brady, he was an athletic guy. He ended up being picked way on later in the draft and turned out to be probably the greatest quarterback of all time. But it kind of gives you an idea. Looking forward to watching it. And these two guys right here, Thomas and Dustin, will be up close. I think we were talking before. They for sure planned on watching the wide receivers and the quarterbacks perform. So two really exciting positions and two positions we could be looking at in the draft maybe to pair in Kevin O'Connell's offense. So Thomas, going in, who are you kind of keeping an eye on? What position groups are you kind of excited to watch coming out of the scouting combine later this week?
Yeah, I think the cornerback position for the Vikings is going to be a big one. I just saw that Derek Stingley Jr. he won't be participating, so that's kind of a bummer. But I think when you look at guys like Sauce Gardner, seeing how he's going to test out, that's going to be pretty big. He's a lengthy 6'3" guy, so I think if he could run in the low 4.4s, if he even runs 4.3, to run a 4.3, he's going to skyrocket up
For
that
sure.
draft board. If he has one of those outings where he runs like a 4.38, he's got like maybe like a close to a 40-inch vertical. I mean, he's probably not gonna make it past Carolina at like 6 or something, because
Right.
they love going young corners.
Yeah.
They have J.C. Horn, so I mean that's just another guy. But I think Malik Willis is going to be the number one guy that you need to keep an eye out for.
For sure.
He's the one who's going to test. If he tests great and he runs a 4.3 and he just slings that ball in the dome, he's going to skyrocket. And for the Vikings, Malik Willis is simply a guy they're going to keep an eye on because pick 12-ish is kind of arguably where he's going to go
Right.
in that range. So if Minnesota does trade Cousins or they figure something out or they want to keep Cousins and just draft Willis and wait a year, he's going to be the guy. He's the only guy I think that they would really take a chance on in round one, because I mean he threw the ball I think like 85 yards in the air at the Senior
Crazy.
Bowl. It's absolutely insane. So I'm wondering if he's going to really sling it at the Dome, inside Lucas Oil Stadium. So yeah, I mean, I think the cornerback and the quarterback group are pretty big positions. You should probably keep an eye out for.
For sure.
The offensive line drills, they're just too hard to really determine what's going on there.
Right.
But like seeing a quarterback like throw out routes, deep shots, they really let them sling it at the combine. So I would say quarterback in the cornerback position and seeing their hip rotation, their hip positioning drills. Those are the two big ones that I think we should definitely look out for.
Yeah. No, I agree. And whoever follows me on Twitter, I'm a huge Sauce Gardner guy. I just absolutely love where he could potentially end up being. He's a lengthy corner. He's got good speed, and he's got his strides are so long. So if he doesn't have that top end speed, he's got such long legs to catch up with those speedy receivers and everything like that. So that's a guy I'm definitely keeping an eye on 12, and especially if Stingley, he's had surgery, so he could drop a little bit in the draft maybe. So does Sauce Gardner become that number one guy, especially if he performs well at the combine? I could definitely see that happening. And then obviously, yeah, the quarterbacks, and I think, yeah, you hit it on the head there, Thomas. I think if we take a flyer on anyone in the first round, it's Malik Willis. He's got all the tools to be a franchise quarterback. He fits that mold of today's quarterback. But he probably has the biggest potential to bust out too. You never know. So I definitely think we need to keep our eyes open on those two as well. Dustin, what are you kind of thinking? Are you looking forward to watching any certain quarterback?
Quarterbacks are definitely interesting. There's uh so it looks like, there's a good, handful of quarterbacks that, there's not a whole ton, it's not a very deep class of quarterbacks. Um but one position that I guess I am looking forward to on Thursday is definitely the wideouts. I heard that, they're one of the deeper classes of wideouts this year, along with edge rushers. So don't know too much about either side there, but definitely wideouts are one thing that I'm definitely looking forward to.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I totally agree with you. And there's some deep position groups. I think wide receiver is one of the more deeper position groups in the draft this year. So you can find like an impact player. I think even in the mid rounds. And one guy, just because he kind of hits close to home, I'm kind of looking forward to watching is Christian Watson,
Yep.
North Dakota State, big body guy, 6'5". We haven't had that jump ball guy go get it since like Sidney Rice in 2009, and I think that'd be a nice little look there. I don't know where he's probably going to end up in the draft. I think it kind of depends on how he does in the combine as well. Thomas, are you a fan of Christian Watson? Do you think he could fit in this
I do
offense?
like I do like Christian Watson a lot. I do think that it's gonna be tough because I think Vikings are picking 46. I think that's I think where they pick in the second round that's probably too high. But I also in the third round don't know if he'll be available. He's a guy that's kind of in between the Vikings pick in the second and third round. Like he makes a lot of sense for like Chicago in like round three. But when I love his game. He really stands out. Like when you were watching, if you were last year watching a lot of like Trey Lance highlights because that was like Lance's go-to guy.
Right.
But I mean, just watching his game, I see a lot of Jordy Nelson in his game. Kind of came across as a lot of Jordy Nelson. Really big outside receiver that could win the 50-50 ball, but he's also just he's just a smooth route runner. He
Oh,
doesn't
for
even look
sure.
like he's 6'5". He just plays very strong, uptight, but he's very loose with his routes. He doesn't sell them short. Yeah, so I mean, I'm a fan. There's a lot of receivers I like in this draft class. Someone I'd love the Vikings to target. I'm not sure if he's going to compete in the combine this weekend, but that's Justin Ross from Clemson.
Clemson. Yep.
He's a guy that if he never would have had his neck injury, not this past season, but the season before, he probably would have been like the number one, the consensus like number one or at least top three rated wide receiver in the draft class.
Sure.
So I mean, I would be tempted as Minnesota to even take him in the second round if he's there, simply just because the talent's unmatched. He's 6'4", like 220. He fits the mold of the DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams types coming out of Clemson, and those guys have really panned out in the NFL. So I mean, the receivers are going to be big, and I do think Minnesota needs to invest at least a second or third round pick on a receiver,
Yeah, I
because
agree.
there's no plan after Adam Thielen. There's zero plan, and KJ Osborne's nice and all, but he's a fifth round pick, and I don't know if he's really a guy that you could really rely on as a number two receiver because the Vikings were down in a lot of games last year. So I mean, throwing to like KJ just by default, um, you see the production, but like I don't know if Osborne could be a reliable like wide receiver two and be the heir apparent to Thielen, or if
Yep.
Amir Smith Marset could be. The potential's there for both, but it's hard to pass on on a first or second round pick wide receiver to team along with JJ.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. We need to add some explosiveness, some crisp route running into that wide receiver room. Another impact player, like we've been saying. Adam Thielen probably has 1 or 2 years left of being a really good wide receiver. I don't even know if he'll be elite. I mean, he's really good in the red zone because he's a great route runner. But between the hashes and stuff like that, I think we just need a guy that is another threat out wide that teams need to focus on, a la Justin Jefferson. So I definitely think there's a possibility we draft a wide receiver in that second, third round area. I think Kevin O'Connell is very open to pulling the trigger on one of these young guns who can make an impact in year one. A lot of these guys are NFL ready to make an impact right now. So it's interesting to see how they kind of look at that wide receiving room as well. Another, I think, area the Vikings are going to be focusing on, so they're probably going to be keeping an eye on here as well, is edge rushers, outside linebackers, to fit in this, 3-4 defense. A linebacker that I'm pretty, high on. I don't know how great, pass rushing wise or anything like that, but I think he's got the, he's a ball magnet. Wherever the ball is, he's there. He's fast. He's quick. Is Nakobe Dean out of Georgia. I'm a huge fan of his. I just think he could be an impact player from day one. I don't know how good he would be at rushing the passer. I don't think he fits that mold. Maybe. What do you guys think about Nakobe Dean?
I'll let Thomas have the floor on this one.
Sure thing.
Yeah, I mean, he comes from Georgia. I'm very high on him and Devin Lloyd from
Yep.
Utah, I believe. It's hard to imagine either of these guys make it past New England. It's no secret that New England's looking for an heir apparent to Dante Hightower.
Sure.
So, but no, I'm very high on Nakobe Dean, and he's a guy I would love Minnesota to potentially target if they like traded back from 12
Right.
to like the middle of the like 20s.
Yep.
Like say if they traded back with like Pittsburgh at pick 20, who wanted to move up for a quarterback,
Yeah.
and Minnesota moved down from like Kendricks,
Sure. Yep.
and say like you trade Kendricks for a third and like sixth round pick or something. He would be an easy replacement. The last linebacker to come out of Georgia was Roquan Smith, and Roquan's worked out fairly well. Yeah, but I have Nakobe Dean as my linebacker too. I'm very high on like just Devin Lloyd from Utah.
Yeah.
The guy is
I
insane.
agree.
He's a freak. But Nakobe Dean, he comes across this guy. He's just a very base middle linebacker who really fits a 4-3 primarily.
Yep.
I think he could fit that 3-4 because I mean Roquan Smith made the transition, so it's absolutely possible.
Yep.
But yeah, Nakobe Dean's a stud. He would be probably, I would say, if you're picking in the 20s, he's like one of the safest picks in the draft because there's upside there, but it's just when you watch the film, he's just a tackling machine. He's everywhere. He's a leader on the field. Yeah, the linebacker position this year is very deep, especially the edge rusher class. So it's going to be exciting to see where a lot of these go. I would say Nakobe Dean's best fit. He's probably going to go to like somewhere like Tennessee. Like
Sure.
Tennessee seems like a really good fit with Vrabel.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say Nakobe Dean. There's a lot to like.
Sure. Yeah, and I just like him as a player. I've watched him a few times, just watching film. He's got a good energy, and I think, yeah, like you said, I think he could probably fit in any defense. He's probably more primarily 4-3, but I think he could make the transition to the 3-4. So something to keep our eye out for. And Dustin, for the first one or two rounds, what are you kind of looking at the Vikings? Where do you think they're going to kind of aim to build and improve this roster? What position groups are you kind of paying attention to?
I think what's best for the team is definitely the defensive side of the ball, just because of the new formation that they're going to be using, or new defense. I think offense is, pretty much set. There's still a couple question marks, but depending on how things go this offseason, before the draft, I think offense is pretty much set. Defense, with the new scheme, linebackers and edge rushers are definitely, a good side to be looking at. I guess the secondary position as well, would be, the defensive backs. Um, Corners, I think Sauce Gardner would probably be one of the better picks that the Vikings can
Oh, for sure.
take from
I think we
defense
all
or
agree. Yep.
ball. Then edge rusher, I heard that's, a pretty deepish class as well this year. But we all know that Thibodeau and the other guy from, let me
From
see.
Michigan.
Yeah,
David
Michigan.
David Ojabo.
Yeah,
definitely.
they're definitely gonna, go 1A, 1B. They're, top 10 picks, I think. But after that, you know, some good edge rushers in there too, sprinkled in. So
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
Boy Mafi from Minnesota. That's one who's risen off the draft boards.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of comparisons to like Daniil Hunter, just the raw talent,
His
young.
motor's insane too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's gonna test insane. But David Ojabo is my guy.
Yeah.
Um, that is someone I would love for Minnesota to target at pick 12. Whether you're sticking with whether Hunter's here or not, I think if you could
Sure.
team them up together, that's great.
Yeah.
But I do think if Hunter does get dealt, that Ojabo's got to be the pick at 12, even if Gardner's on the board, because I think you're gonna. I feel like you could fix the quarterback position a little bit in the. Because if you're moving Hunter, you're freeing up a lot of cap space. So I mean,
Right.
I think that's gonna give you some money to bring back a Patrick Peterson and sign like a Bryce Callahan.
Sure.
So I do think that if you invest in like David Ojabo, that would make a lot of sense. I mean, the guy's raw.
He
He's
is.
so young. He hasn't even been playing football that long. So he's just, if you watch his highlights at Michigan, his tape, I mean, the guy's just explosive. I mean, he's
Very
going to
much
run a
so.
4.5. Just, I see so much like Chandler Jones and Von Miller like in his game. And he just loves the game of football.
Yeah, he
You
does.
know, he's a high energy guy. I believe I could be wrong here, but I believe his family and them, they're from like Nigeria maybe, or
Really.
they're from like some different country where like he hasn't been in America
Right.
like that long compared to others. So he's still like learning, but I mean the guy's just a raw talent. He's probably gonna run at least I would say a 4.6. So that alone is just so just intriguing. And I think he's only like 20 years old too.
Right.
2021.
Yeah. If we go defense, I think him and Sauce Gardner are like my top two. If we go defense, and I think there's a chance they could be available at 12. I don't know if we're gonna have to do some moving up a little bit, but if either of those guys drop and they're there for the taking, I would have no issue taking either of those guys at all. I think they'd be great pieces to this defense. So
I do have a question for you guys though.
sure.
Speaking of, draft position, stuff like that, since we do not have a fourth round pick this year, do you guys see us trading back from, round 2 or 3 just to get a fourth round pick this year?
What do you think, Thomas?
Possible. I mean, it's possible. We don't know Quasi's strategy.
All right.
Well, in Cleveland, they typically they moved up for guys. They didn't
Right.
necessarily move back. Andrew Berry's strategy was always moving up. So I would ask for a fourth round pick probably back in any trade back.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard to say necessarily if they're 100% going to acquire a fourth round pick. There's a lot of holes on this team, so I won't be shocked if they trade back from 12, and then maybe trade back again, maybe in the third round,
Sure.
or in any Cousins deal or a Cousins trade or a Hunter trade. A fourth round pick they'll probably ask for in return. So
Yeah.
I think all options are on the table.
Right. Yeah, I'm there as well. We don't know how free agency is going to play out. How much cap room are we going to open up? What positions are we going to fill in free agency? And then we can kind of base off that if they're kind of looking at the draft of getting some high impact players, or they're using the draft to kind of fill out the roster where they would need to gain more draft capital to do that. So I think it's interesting to see which way Kwesi will go, because like Thomas said, we have no idea how he's going to work this draft and how he's going to work free agency.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting process, that's for sure. Now we know that there's going to be a lot of focus on the defense because obviously we don't have a ton of talent over there. We need to build out that side of the ball, especially in free agency and in the draft. It's going to happen. Now offensively, offensive line is a talk every year. We've struggled in that area for a long time. The two positions in need are center and right guard. Our two tackles are very solid. Brian O'Neill's he got all pro vote this year. He's a damn good right tackle. And then Christian Darrisaw, hopefully he can continue to make strides and playing at that level as well. And then Ezra Cleveland shows some promise. He's doing a good job transitioning there. Now, so you got center and right guard. Obviously, we need to do something there. I think most of us here like Wyatt Davis as a prospect. Hopefully, he can make some strides. He's working with, can't think of the guy's name right now, but he's working with like an O-line guru down in Texas,
Yeah.
I think, or something like that. So hopefully he makes strides this offseason, gain some strength, and he can, play one of those positions. But Tyler Lindenbaum of Iowa, I think he would fit that center position for us. Garrett Bradbury is, not it. What do you guys think of Tyler Lindenbaum, or is there any other prospects you would like the Vikings to look at in the interior of that offensive line?
Yeah, Tyler Linderbaum is an absolute stud. He's probably the best center draft prospect to come out in recent years.
Yeah,
As much it would be like intriguing for the Vikings to take him, I don't know if they're going to make the same mistake twice, and that's
sure.
taking a center
Garrett
in the
Bradbury.
first round.
Yeah,
No, because I think Bradbury, they might be a little hesitant knowing that they really missed on Bradbury. And center's typically a position you could fill via free agency with an older guy for at least 2 or 3 years.
sure.
Or you could find still good quality centers in like the third or fourth round. There's just so many needs right now, and I don't necessarily know if like center should be like top of that list. But I do think I mean there's so much like he's from Iowa. That's where you want to get your offensive lineman from.
Yeah, for
Big
sure.
big beefy guys that he's very big in stopping the run or stopping the run, blocking the run. He makes a lot of sense for a lot of areas. It's just unfortunately I think the Vikings have so many needs right now that they might have to pass on that.
Yeah,
But I do think if they did a trade back, it would be intriguing if you're at pick, say like 20, and he's still magically on the board. Then at that point, it gets kind of like best player available.
sure.
But I do think they should stick with like Wyatt Davis because like a year ago, right now, Wyatt Davis was projected as like a late first round pick.
Yep.
So I mean, the potential's there. I'd love to see them have a competition between like Wyatt Davis and like a free agent guard.
Sure.
Have those guys battle out. Not necessarily maybe give Bradbury another year. He's got 1 year left, so I mean, maybe the new coaching staff and new offensive line scheme could really fix him potentially because I mean he still has 1 year left. I think you still just got to ride it out with Bradbury. Maybe bring in some competition like a Brian Allen from the
Sure.
Rams, but
Yep.
yeah, I mean Alec Lindstrom from Boston College later on would make a lot of sense. He's like a fourth round projection. You
Gotcha.
know, so he was the brother of Lindstrom from the Falcons, a former first round pick a few years back.
Yep.
That's his brother,
Gotcha.
and he plays the center position. So that's just another name that I can probably give you guys. But yeah, I mean, I think right guard and center, that's not necessarily a need right now. It's more of a luxury, I would say, because I feel like you could find like guys for like 2 or 3 million in free agency
Sure.
to compete and get similar production.
Yep.
Again, there's just so many holes.
Yeah,
Secondary,
there is.
secondary is so big.
Yeah. No, I
It's,
agree.
it's
I
hard to
agree.
ignore that because you don't have much. You don't have much money. So
I-
like if say they keep Cousins or extend him, they're gonna be very tight for cash, and then at that point you're gonna need to invest your draft capital. Your first
Yep.
two picks are probably gonna have to be in that secondary.
Yeah.
So
Nope. Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from, especially, Garrett Bradbury. I think he was like pick 23, I think, in the first round.
18.
18. Oh, he was that high. Yeah, and everyone was talking about he was the most NFL ready, offensive lineman almost in that entire draft. He was like a can't miss prospect. He had a high ceiling, low floor, or high ceiling, high floor, and he just hasn't turned out at all. And our last two centers that have been really good, John Sullivan, Matt Burke, both 6th round draft picks. I mean, you can find those guys later on in the draft. I think to build out that offense line or look in free agency. It depends on how much money we have to spend in that area, but I think I think that's the way to go about it. And but draft combine, it's exciting. To see these guys kind of hit the field in front of everybody and all these GMs, coaches, and everything like that. And you guys are going to be there. First time for both of you, I'm guessing. So
Yep.
yeah, so you got to be excited for that. And another thing that that the combine brings is a lot of talk between GMs, leaders, trade rumors swirl. A lot of these guys start talking. So that's something to look forward to as well, because there's going to be some leaks coming out in the next week or so, I'm guessing, from the combine. Anything else you guys wanted to add? Any other players you wanted to keep an eye out for, or just any more points you guys wanted to make at all?
There's one prospect I would love. I don't necessarily. I highly doubt he will even be available. But I mean, Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame would be an awesome selection.
Yeah.
He's your Harrison Smith replacement, or you could team him up with Smith. He could play linebacker.
Yep.
He's just the best overall prospect in the entire draft.
Yeah.
I've seen multiple mocks where they got him like 3 or 4, but then there's
it's crazy.
some where it's like he slips past like 8, and then some where he's available at like pick like 13 or 14.
Right.
He's a guy that I think if you're on the board with Minnesota, it would be tough to pass on, just
Right.
because you don't know where you'd play him, but I mean, just the guy's an absolute stud.
Yeah, he is, and he's marked at safety, I think. And
He's 6'4", like 230. I mean, he's just a tank.
yeah, like I knew a little bit about him, but I didn't watch a lot of like Notre Dame football or anything like that. And I saw that, yeah, he was like up in the top 5 area, and he was a safety. I'm like, why do they have a safety up that high? I'm like, really? And then I watched some film and watched some highlights. I'm like, okay, I get it now. He can play in.
There was one, I forgot like what play it was, but he may have got an interception like on like one side of the field. Like he ran from like he was like at like one side of the field, and he ran like all the way to the opposite side of the field in like just a few seconds to get this interception. It was just, I mean, the guy's just a gift. I mean, he's like Isaiah Simmons from a few years back.
Right.
Where, like he could play both.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I would love him, and I would love to see them maybe take a strong look at Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Never gonna happen, but him or Jameson Williams would be pretty fun.
Yeah, they're both game stoppers, and I think it'd be so fun to have them in this offense. One of those guys and Justin Jefferson. Whew, are you kidding me? It'd be insane. And then Treylon Burks, I love him too as a wide receiver, and he's probably not. It'd have to be probably another trade down. I don't think he's going to go as high as 12. I think that'd be a reach at that area. But if we get into the 20s or somewhere in there, I think it'd be an interesting look. 'Cause the guy's a physical freak. I think that'd be another option. But Garrett Wilson is, yeah, I think he'd be amazing in this offense. That'd be awesome to have him be a Viking. But guys, thanks for joining in again. Thomas, Dustin, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching, and you can catch us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Again, if you want to follow these guys on Twitter, they're going to be very active later on this week at the combine, tweeting out live videos if they need to, if they're able. They're going to be active over there on Twitter, so you can follow Thomas at Thomas Gorski on Thomas Gorski 33 and Dustin at that Vikings fan 8. Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see everyone in the next one.